Hey everybody, this is going to be the ridiculously easy staggered fuse edition, and what you're going to need to accomplish this is your snips, your pliers, you're going to need your wires, various sizes, also your drill along with a vise, and you're going to need the wood and the swivels to attach to the wood plank. You can move your wood up and down to get your right sizes between your drill and your wood. Up first, we're going to be using the 26 gauge nichrome wire. We are going to need to take this and just extend it off and take the right amount of wire required for it. So just pull it out and snip it off. Now that we have the wires snipped, we're going to place one of them inside the chuck, and we're going to be straightening out that wire. So you just adjust your chuck to the wire inside, you use your snips, and you hold on to the end of the wire, and you can use forward or reverse, whichever's comfortable for you, and you just straighten out that wire. Now I'm a little anal, so I will pop this into reverse, and then I will take out that imperfection that actually shows up in the wire when you do it this way, and I just do that out of force of habit. That's just what I do. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Now that the first one's done, let's get the second one underway. Make sure that both of your wires are relatively the same size and that you straighten them out both accordingly so that they both come out even, they're flat, and they're parallel to themselves. Again, I do it one way, I stop it, and then I go back the other way and I take out those imperfections. As you can see, both wires are straight as an arrow. They are perfect for what we are going to be using them for today. So now that you have those wires nice and straight, as you can see, both of those wires are done up nicely. That rotation technique takes out a lot of the imperfections in it as far as the little kinks. It works a lot of magic. Does it take out everything all the time? No, but you got to work with what you work with. And as you can see, those ones are looking fairly well. So what we're going to be doing from this point is securing our wire to our vise, and the vise is set up with the swivels onto it. Take my snips and I clamp it, and I just turn it over so that it stays nice and secure. When I'm doing this, I find just having a little loop isn't enough, so I secure it just in case it ends up slipping out. So now you're going to take your 36 gauge, also nichrome, and place it into the end of the chuck. Now this is going to be for the purpose of doing the clapton, and it's at this point in the whole building technique here that you're going to want to keep everything running exactly the same way. You're going to see throughout the video I have a very very cautious way of doing it. I point in every direction that I'm going to be using it, which is only one direction, exactly the same way. Now I find at this point it's good to hold your wire back a little bit from your spool. This really helps your clapton go on nice and easy. At first, when I started using this way of doing it, I wasn't very comfortable with it. I thought it looked way too hard, but as soon as I got the swivel and I tried it, I found out this is a much easier way to do claptoning than it is to use your fingers and hold it together. It is remarkably easy, As you can see, things are spinning along quite well there. I just popped it into high gear and I'm going over the wire with relative ease at this point on. Now what you're going to want to do is clapton up that gauge of wire right there, the 26 with the 36, roughly anywhere from half to 3/4 of the overall wire. And this is to leave room for when you start doing your fused onto the two claptons. It will actually push the wires apart and take up the rest of the space of what that wire is left over. As your fusing goes together, the coil springs apart, or the clapton will spring apart, and it will fill in those gaps, extending your overall length. So as you can see, there's my end, there's the clapton. So now that that side's done, let's just get ready and do the other side. You're going to do exactly the same thing that you did with your first clapton. You're just going to use your drill and put it back into the vice swivel and repeat this process in the exact same direction. So the way I like to do my directioning when doing these staggered fuses is I have the drill going away from me. I have it going the opposite way from me, and I find that's really, really easy for myself when I do these claptons. But it's all comes down to a personal preference. If you like doing it the other way, do it the other way. Do what feels comfortable for you, and that's all that really matters. So again, as you're going to see, I'm taking that spool, I'm giving myself some room. And what I've also found is that when you pull your spool back a little bit, you're going to have a little bit more leeway than you would if your spool is closer. What I mean by leeway is that your spool wants to be kept almost parallel to that wire. And if you travel too far one way or the other, your clapton's actually going to go forward and it's not going to look as tight. And if you go back the other way too much, your clapton's going to fold back over on itself or wrap on itself, and it's going to have to cause you to reverse your drill, unravel it, and do it back the other way. If you gave yourself a little bit of room when holding it backwards or holding the actual spool back, you can travel a little bit either which way. You have a little bit of grace as far as putting that on. So as you can see, there is the clapton. It has been done up to that point, and it's traveled along the wire. I am right now spooling that clapton as it goes across. So this is a little close up. Don't mind the quality of it. That's just how my camera works. There is a lot of vibration with that wire, but it's still working quite well. So after you have both of those two cores claptoned together, what you're going to want to do is just check out for any of the imperfections. Make sure that that core will slide back and forth, and hold them both together in one hand. Now what I'm going to do right here, if you check out my left hand, is I am forcing that core back down the end of the wire, so there's a little bit more of the core coming out. And then I'm going to stretch that wire just a little bit, not too much. It'll spring back and forth, back and forth. You don't want to overstretch that wire, or else you're going to have too much of a gap and you're going to end up screwing up the overall staggered fused when it goes together. As you can see right there, I had a little bit too much of my core from one of the claptons sticking out. So first, before I start this, I'm just going to take off that little bit of excess core. I am holding the clapton itself as I pull on the clapton wire, the end of it, to pull it together. This keeps from stretching the whole clapton. It keeps it nice and firm on the wire still while taking off the excess bit, so that I can have them relatively exactly the same distance away from the drill. And this is so that when you're actually putting your fuse and those two cores start going up the wire, you're not going to have one catch before the other. This will cause your claptons not to stretch out anymore, and the wire will fold over in on itself. So now we're going to take these and put them into the swivel. Make sure they're nice and straight in there, which is nice to start off with, but they never stay straight, so don't worry too much about that. But once they're secured in the air and they are tightened on, and this is a very important part, I tighten these up very, very much so when it comes to this particular part. That's because I'm going to be putting quite a bit of excess force on pulling my wire. I'm going to use the 40 gauge nichrome wire to do the actual fuse. And like I said, you want to keep those two cores with the claptons really tight on there, because as you put the force on this 40 gauge, as you're pulling it towards you to put the fuse on, it will cause your wire to fold in and come forward unless you have a very steady and sturdy setup. I'm just doing this on a desk right now, so it's a little bit harder. I have a lot of excess stuff, but that's where my camera setup is, so that's all I had to work with. And as you can see, it still works. Start off nice and slow. Put the 40 gauge into the chuck and just give her a few wraps around. Make sure you find those grooves. It might take you a couple tries or a couple seconds to actually find the groove that you want it to be in. Holding it back, again, just like when doing the clapton, gives you a little bit of leeway, a little bit of extra comfort room. And there you go. You can see that that is starting to fuse on there nicely. This is the staggered fused portion of what is actually happening. Now, using this way, you don't have to use any excess wire. What you've used is what you've used. You don't have any junk wire to throw away. So this is going on very nice. You can see taking my time, putting it in as it goes along. Now, as you actually find that your comfortable spot, you will be able to just speed this process up and streamline it through the rest of that wire. What I find myself, one of the hardest things to do is stop it and restart it. Once I find my groove, I normally just keep going. Stopping and starting is the hardest part about doing this, as funny as it is. And as you can see, I am just going along quite nice. I end up picking up some speed here. It is traveling and it's doing what it has to do. So you can see the portions of it. This is the staggered part, and these are the two claptons that are left to be done. Just in case it was hard to see, I can tell with the background it is a little bit hard to tell. So you're going to see here now in a second, I am going to come up to a disappointing section of this. What happens is that the fuse doesn't go on quite like I wanted it to. There were a couple little imperfections in it, and I'm going to show you how to take out those particular imperfections and what to do for the rest of it. So there you have it. You can see right there, there are a bit of imperfections with it, and I didn't enjoy that. So just pop your drill into reverse and just take out that section of it. And it's not a problem to do so. It comes out quite easy, quite simple, and the wires keep themselves together quite nicely. And then all you got to do is put it back into the original direction and just keep going. And as you can see, I'm running my clapton away from me, or my fuse is going away from me. It is keeping it in the same direction as the two claptons. And all that's left to do with this is just continue on the way and keep it going. So at this point, what you're going to end up is this. This is the actual up close of that staggered fused. This is what's going on right now. They're catching together and meshing. So I'm just going to end up finishing off the rest of this wire. Again, as you can see, once you get into that groove, that wire is spinning fairly quick. It's as quick as my drill can do it on my slow speed, my slow setting, not my uber fast setting. And it's just going along there. It's pumping out really nicely. And that's as easy it is. When you get everything in place, the entire wire ends up coming out like this. Like I said, the stopping and showing you what's going on, that's the hardest part about doing this, is the stopping portion of it. So I have that wire completely finished already, and now it is perfect to be made into a coil. But before it goes into a coil, let's give you a little close up of the overall wire as it came out. There you have it. That is the up close and personal shot of that staggered fused. As you can tell, that thing is looking beautiful. That is a lovely staggered fused with the 26 gauge nichrome cores, the 36 gauge clapton, and the 40 gauge fused for the overall staggered fused. So I'm just going to shove this around a drill bit and do up a real quick coil for you, and then I'm going to show you the end results in a better looking picture than you're going to see from this actual video of how to do this up close and personal, what the end results are going to actually be. Personally, I am dying for these staggered fused right now. I love aliens. I love doing the 3 to 4 core flat fused claptons, but these staggered fuses are nice. I like the 3 different variations of wire that are going into this. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the 3 different wires actually heating up at 3 different stages or 3 different times It all happens in a nanosecond, a millisecond, but it still does happen. I like the flavor that this produces off it, and I love these coils. Now, I have done this technique using the loop, and I have done where you use 2 cores for your claptoning part and take off 1 core, and that took forever, and it turned me right off these coils altogether. I hated wasting all that wire, but this way makes it come out nice and excellent. As you can see, that is the end result, and it takes next to no time to put this all together. I have taken out a few cuts from this, but all in all, it's about a 20-minute or less process without the cuts in there. You can, max about 25 to 30 minutes if you're really taking your time, but you can put out as many coils as you want within a short period of time. It all depends on how much wire you're going to be using. When you find that groove, you can spit these things off just like you would regular coils. So that's all I got for today. That's the end result right there for you guys. Have yourselves an excellent day. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more.